have to stay vigilant. The professor entrusted us with his dream.
The X-Men villains have always been a huge part of what makes the stories exciting, but because Fox had their own X-Men movies and the animated series X-Men '97, Marvel Studios faces a pretty big challenge in bringing these bad guys into the MCU in a fresh way. Fox's run with the X-Men introduced a bunch of iconic villains, like Magneto and his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Dark Phoenix, Sabretooth, Sebastian Shaw, Silver Samurai, Donald Pierce, and Apocalypse. These guys really shaped the tone and feel of the X-Men universe for years. Then, after Disney took over 20th Century Fox, Deadpool and Wolverine dropped a curveball by introducing Cassandra Nova, who is basically a twin sister to a mysterious version of Charles Xavier. Even though Fox's X-Men movies covered a lot, they actually missed out on bringing some of Marvel's most famous X-Men villains to the screen. For example, Mr. Sinister was supposed to appear in several Fox projects, but those plans never quite took off. There are plenty of big-name enemies like Mojo, Omega Red, Mastermind, Strife, and Onslaught that never got a chance to make it into live-action movies or shows. The good news is, Marvel Studios now has a chance to explore all those untapped stories and characters that Fox's franchise didn't cover. But one group of villains stands out as especially tricky: the Sentinels. Marvel's going to have to get pretty creative to do them justice in the MCU. The Sentinels are honestly some of the most terrifying villains Marvel has ever put on screen. Remember in X-Men Days of Future Past, when the Sentinels attack mutants in the future? That whole sequence is downright chilling. These robots adapt to every mutant power they encounter, and they methodically take down the mutant resistance in the most brutal ways possible. In the end, the Sentinels seemed unstoppable, with the only reason mutants survived being Wolverine's time-traveling interference. Even the early Sentinels from the 1970s, built by Bolivar Trask, looked like giant, cold, nightmare machines just waiting to wipe out mutants. Eventually, the MCU's human characters will have to create their own defense against mutants, which means the MCU's version of the Sentinels will need to match or even top the threat level of the ones Fox and the animated series have shown. Speaking of which, X-Men '97 took the already intimidating Sentinels from the original animated series and turned them up a notch. The show featured regular Sentinels plus a high-tech Master Mold, which ended up wiping out most of the mutants on Genosha, including heroes like Gambit, Dazzler, Madeline Pryor, Banshee, and the Morlocks. Despite the X-Men's best efforts, the massacre was devastating, proving once again that Sentinels and the humans who built them are mutant-kind's deadliest foes. There aren't many Marvel villains as effective, scary, and powerful as the Sentinels from Days of Future Past and X-Men '97. While Marvel Studios could try focusing on lesser-known villains to set themselves apart from previous adaptations, the Sentinels are simply too important to skip. Sooner or later, the MCU will need to show humans making a serious move against mutants, and the Sentinels will be right at the center of that conflict. One problem with Fox's movies was that they took way too long to really get the Sentinels on screen. They had a brief cameo in X-Men: The Last Stand, but those were just holograms in the Danger Room for training purposes, not actual Sentinels in action. Days of Future Past finally gave us the full Sentinels experience, but even then, their origin in the 1970s didn't quite line up with the earlier movies. To outdo Fox, Marvel could build up to the Sentinels' first attack gradually, showing how humans' fear and hatred of mutants grows over time, which would make the eventual showdown feel more intense and earned. The movies barely scratch the surface of what Sentinels really are in the comics. In the comics, humans create a master mold that builds the Sentinels. And there's also a mother mold that creates master molds, basically layers of these machines, building even bigger and badder machines. Because they're so powerful, the X-Men often avoid attacking them directly and try other ways to stop them. Then there's Nimrod, an even more advanced Sentinel who's a self-aware and ruthless AI fueled by hatred for mutants. Plus, Prime Sentinels hybrids of humans and Sentinels add another terrifying dimension to the threat. All of these versions of Sentinels could play major roles in the MCU someday. X-Men 97, which is a continuation of the original X-Men the Animated Series, has been a huge success for Marvel and has brought a bunch of attention back to the franchise. It stays pretty faithful to the comics and has helped build excitement for the mutants, who now have a growing presence in the Marvel Universe. Season 1 of X-Men 97 started streaming in March 2024 and picks up with mutants dealing with the fallout of Charles Xavier being gone and how that affects mutant-human relations. A lot of the original voice cast returned, though some new people joined in as well. Even though Season 1 was a hit, it sounds like Season 2 has had some issues. Beau DeMaio, the original creator and head writer, shared on social media that production is currently stalled after a rough friends and family screening. He mentioned that even after a year of rewrites and reshoots, it's been tough to figure out how to handle the material he left behind because it was too adult and comic book for some. While his comments should be taken with a grain of salt, it's still disappointing for fans hoping the momentum from Season 1 would carry smoothly into Season 2. Interestingly, Disney approved Season 2 before Season 1 even premiered. Since X-Men 97 isn't officially part of the MCU canon, it can tell its own stories without worrying about affecting the movie's timeline. So far, the show is getting great reviews and building hype for what's next. Beau DeMaio finished writing Season 2 before he was let go in March 2024, right before Season 1 dropped. Marvel streaming and animation boss Brad Winderbaum seems confident that the team picking up the show can keep things on track. They started working on Season 2 back in September 2023, so by the time Season 1 wrapped in May 2024, Season 2 was already underway. But since they parted ways with DeMaio before Season 1 was released, that likely complicated the production process a bit. Still, reports say most of the voice cast is expected to return based on how Season 1 ended, even though some casting changes happened for authenticity, like changing the voice of Jubilee to an Asian American actress to better represent the character. Lenore Zann, who voices Rogue, recently mentioned that recording for Season 2 wrapped up and it's expected to come out in 2026. That might be disappointing for fans wanting new episodes sooner, but on the bright side, she's about to start recording for Season 3, so there's a lot to look forward to. If Beau DeMaio's comments about delays are true, the 2026 date could get pushed back, but at least the show has a long-term future. A bunch of the original voice actors have returned for Season 2, including Cal Dodd as Wolverine, Lenore Zann as Rogue, Matthew Watterson as Magneto, and Ross Marquand as Professor X, among others. The cast also includes voices for Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Beast, Jubilee, Bishop, and more. Season 1 ended with the X-Men scattered across time. Scott and Jean meet their son Nathan as a child in the far future, while Professor X, Magneto, Rogue, Beast, and Nightcrawler find themselves in the distant past, where they run into a young Apocalypse. Forge is trying to track down the missing mutants, with Bishop helping out. So to sum it up, Marvel's got a lot to live up to when it comes to X-Men villains, especially the Sentinels, who have been portrayed as some of the most frightening foes in past adaptations. But with the success of X-Men 97 and Marvel's plans for the MCU, it looks like fans have a lot of great mutant stories to look forward to, even if it takes some time to get there. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.